Hello YouTube, Dave here again. The day has finally arrived. The final book, final of the core books for D&D 5th edition has finally been released. And that, of course, as you can probably tell by the ones I've got here, was the Dungeon Master's Guide. So this is the one that I was kind of looking the most forward to. It was the one that I was really holding out for in terms of reserving judgment for my final thoughts on, 5th edition in general. So, December 9th has come and gone, and finally, here it is. Now, I ordered this from Cole's Chapters Indigo book chain online store, which was where I got all my other ones. I ordered them through the online, and they were delivered, usually promptly, and as soon as they arrived in stores, I was able to pick them up. With this one here, it actually shipped early enough that it probably could have been received in terms of the early releases for it. I think it was November 30th or maybe even the 29th, no later than December 1st when I went on the website and saw that, oh, it's at the store. So I gave them a call and they're like, yes, it's here. However, it's marked for December 9th. So you can't pick it up quite yet. And it was, a 9-day wait to get it. But I finally, the 9th came, I finally got it. And now I want to talk about it. This is going to be a review of the Dungeon Master's Guide itself. The next video will be a comprehensive review of D&D 5th edition. So we'll start with the book itself. Of course, the artwork is fantastic. Liches are some of my favorite, undead monsters. And this is Acerak. I know I probably butchered the pronunciation of that, but he's the Lich who created the Tomb of Horrors. For those of you who went through that module or some of the later versions of it that have been released. I do have the 4th edition version of the Tomb of Horrors, and the adventure actually is really, really kind of cool because it's after that, so it doesn't actually, it's not a remake of the first one, but kind of getting off topic, so let's get back to the DMG. So, first thing, of course, the opening artwork there, and of course there's some Modrons, everybody's favorite. And the disclaimer in this is absolutely hilarious. It definitely, I don't think it's going to focus, but it definitely makes up for the lackluster one that was in the Rise of Tiamat book. When I first got this, I was a bit on the fence. I didn't know if it was, excuse me, I didn't know if it was really worth the wait. There were some things that I was kind of expecting in here that I didn't see. Or wasn't happy with at first, but the more I looked through it, obviously I got over that. The book is broken into several parts. My favorite parts are part 2 and 3. Part 1 is kind of about creating the world, which is great because it gives new players or new DMs a lot of great options as far as having some charts and things that they can kind of roll on randomly to create, settlements, governments, and things like that. So it's really great. Part 2 is all about adventures, NPCs, and of course you get into your treasure. Part 3 is about running the game, basically. So it talks about, things like maybe making table rules, combat. There's options actually for creating classes or class features, kind of tinkering with them. I don't know how much I would allow that myself, but it is kind of neat that it's in there. And there's a section for random dungeons. They have that list of monsters that the monster manual didn't have by challenge rating. A few random maps, and there is a section on inspiration. Now, the book itself, really nice, as is the tradition with 5th edition so far. There's a lot of really fantastic artwork. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the choice of colors for their charts. I don't know how well it's going to pick it up, but it's basically kind of like a light purple, which the other ones were a bit darker, so they kind of stood out a little bit more, at least I thought. But it's grown on me since I started looking into it, and I think they might actually be, now that I think about it, they might actually be somewhat color-coded to the bottom part here, showing what chapter they're in, or what part they're in. But there's a lot of great things in here for new players if you're trying, or even experienced DMs if you're just trying to come up with some stuff on the fly. So, if you're looking for a cataclysmic disaster, something, major to happen, but you're not sure which one to use, there's ability to actually roll it on a chart. Which kind of harkens back to the 1st edition AD&D days. Now, the one thing that I was looking for at first, I was expecting there to be NPC classes. It's something that I thought there were people talking about them, like warriors, adepts, things that they introduced in third edition. And I kind of like the classes. I didn't use them a whole lot, but I kind of like them, and I would have liked to have had the ability to have something like that. But, you know, the fact that they're not included doesn't really matter that much. There's a lot of things for making NPCs and adding things to monsters and stuff like that, and creating villains. So it was a really minor thing, definitely not worth getting worked up over. But there was one thing that I was really looking forward to, and that was some of the villainous options, because they had talked about that, as a sort of being a big thing. And I guess, yeah, the charts are actually color-coded based off of the section that they're in. So I guess there's some kind of like reddish, light red, almost a pink chart for part 2. But anyway, the villainous options were, something that was going to be a big part of, what I thought was going to be in the DMG. And I was a little disappointed when I finally got them, because, there were 2 that I knew were going to be in there, but I was expecting a little bit more. So we knew that the Death Domain was going to be in it, and there was a version of the Paladin, If You Break Your Oath. So, they're kind of the evil versions. So I was expecting things like there might be something for, some of the different classes. Something, maybe some sort of option for, barbarians, maybe a blighter druid option, some sort of evil ranger. I mean, there were things that I was really kind of expecting, and that's all they have is the Death Domain and the Oathbreaker Paladin, and that's really the only 2 things that they have, which takes up a page and a half, or a little less than a page and a half. So I'm not sure how much that was really worth holding off for the DMG for. I mean, the Death Domain is considered evil, in a sense, but if you're playing Forgotten Realms, the god of death, Kalimvor, is actually neutral. So, if you were playing a cleric of Kalimvor before this came out, there was that domain just wasn't available to you, unless the DM created something or they found a leaked version of it somewhere. So I was hoping for a bit more of that. But that's really the only downside I can really, say about this book. I like the fact that there are a lot of charts, a lot of options to do things on the fly. There's a section earlier on for, NPC mannerisms and things of that nature, as well as, goals for, when you're creating villains. So you've got like how you have your bonds, your flaws, your ideals, and stuff like that as player characters. They have those as well for the NPCs, especially the villains. And that comes in really handy, I think, because if you're just looking to make something up on the fly, roll a few dice, and you might be surprised by what kind of interesting villain you can create. So that was that section. There's a lot of things you can do. Their appearance, you can kind of create which abilities are their more favored ones. Talents, mannerisms, ideals. So there's a lot of excellent stuff in this, and it really helps, again, like I said, the newer players, but the more experienced ones are going to have, find this useful as well. There's things for creating encounters, using XP numbers as sort of like a budget to determine what monsters you can kind of put in there, depending on how challenging you want the adventure to be. There's things, for hirelings. There's the villain section there, and adventure environments, locations. Just a lot of really useful stuff in here. Things for between adventures, if you want to have some downtime activities. There's sort of some guidelines that you can follow. So the next thing I really want to talk about are the magic items. So I'm really happy with the way magic items are handled in 5th edition. It's more similar to what they've done in 1st edition AD&D, 2nd edition AD&D, and even 4th edition, where a magic item was what it was. They were all unique. They weren't something generic, or they didn't have generic abilities that you just kind of kept tacking on, like they did in 3rd edition, for example, where you could have a +1, flaming, keen, lawful, holy. Maybe other abilities like of speed or stuff like that, or dancing. They just had all these abilities that you could throw in there, which were all great, but it didn't really add a lot of flavor to the items. Just so many times you see +1 flaming burst longsword, Or you see a +1 keen axiomatic flaming burst longsword, and it's just, you know, it just feels really cold. It doesn't feel like it's something that's a big treasure. It just feels like something you're going to keep tacking abilities onto, which was kind of a problem that I found with magic items in 3rd edition. So I'm glad that they went in an opposite direction with that in 5th. So, you know, your weapon, if it does, you know, fire damage, it's, you know, like a frostbrand, or, you know, they are what they are, and they don't have things that you can kind of keep tacking onto it. There's also no cost listings for the individual items. There is a section on selling items if you want to, but it doesn't make it easy. You have to, you know, find a prospective buyer. There's a lot of time involved in it, and, you know, that's only if the DM really wants to allow it. So the items themselves, they have a lot of nice illustrations, and one of the things that they did, I think, well, was the inclusion of cursed items, which have always kind of been there, but in the past a cursed longsword would give you -1 to your attacks and damage, and you can't do anything. You can't get rid of it unless you have a break curse or remove curse spell cast on you. With these ones, the cursed items, and I'm just going to see if I can maybe find one here, the cursed items, actually, they still provide you with a benefit. It's just they have some sort of horrible drawback. And I'm probably not going to find one quickly. Just going through this, but let's just see. Here we go, Berserker Axe. So, for example, Berserker Axe is you have to attune it to yourself. It's a +1 to your attack and damage rolls. In addition, when you're attuned to the weapon, your hit point maximum increases by 1 for each level that you have attained. So it gives you extra hit points, +1 to attack and damage, if you attune yourself to it. When you attune yourself to it, you become cursed. So as long as you remain cursed, you are unwilling to part with the axe. So you won't give it to anybody. You have to keep it within reach at all times, and you also have disadvantage on attack rolls with weapons other than that one. So if you use anything other than your Berserker Axe, for example, then you're at disadvantage. Whenever a hostile creature damages you, when you have the axe in your possession, you must succeed on a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw or go berserk. And then unless, you know, when you're berserk, you must use your action each round to attack the creature nearest to you with the axe. So it doesn't actually specify enemy or ally, it's just the nearest creature. So it's kind of cool like that, but it's not something that, you know, it's going to be obviously cursed, and, you know, there are some benefits to kind of having it. So, and a lot of the cursed items are like that, so they're actually positives with a huge drawback as far as the curse is concerned. So you still can use the item until you get that remove curse cast, so it's not going to give you penalties for the weapon necessarily itself. Unlike the -1s that a lot of other ones had. So, I mean, that's basically the magic items. They're all, you know, got all their descriptions there. They're all, you know, again, unique. They're all, I think, well designed. I haven't had a chance to read too many of them so far, so I can't really talk too in depth. And but that's basically, you know, the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. So there's a lot of great stuff in here. You know, if you're playing 5th edition, then obviously this is a core book, so you're going to end up picking it up. There's a few more things that I'm going to talk about the DMG, but I'm going to save that for my review of 5th edition as a whole. This is just basically about this individual book, so if you're playing 5th edition, obviously you're going to get this. It is fantastic. Other than really the villainous options, everything else in it I think is great. It's really useful for, again, you know, you want to bring in new gamers, so there's a lot of useful hints, you know, tips and tools that new players will have. And there's a lot of things that are there for the convenience of more experienced players who, maybe like myself, don't have a lot of time to spend fleshing things out the way that they used to. So having some of those things for, you know, villains' motivations, their flaws, secret weaknesses, stuff like that, I think is really great. Magic items are handled well, and in general, this is an absolutely fantastic book. So I do give it a thumbs up, and in the next video, I'm going to talk about the edition as a whole. So, you know, I have a few thoughts on that, and we'll get to that in the next video. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.